Because if the chaos machine was powered by fear, then the antidote is not more fear. The antidote is presence. Real spirituality is not an escape. It's an arrival. It's the practice of being here, on purpose, with attention fully turned toward what's true. When you're spiritually present, you stop living on autopilot, stop reacting before you understand, stop chasing distraction, stop borrowing meaning from other people's expectations. Presence changes everything because it changes your relationship to time. Fear lives in the future. Fear says, something terrible is coming. And then it keeps you running, keeps you tense, keeps you desperate for control. But presence lives in the now. It says, this moment is real. What can I do with this reality? So the first rebellion is simple. You observe your inner state instead of obeying it. You notice the impulse to lash out. You notice the urge to collapse. You notice the compulsion to numb out. And you choose, instead, to breathe, to reflect, to respond. Not with perfection, just with awareness. That awareness becomes a kind of spiritual intelligence. And it scales outward, because once enough people learn to govern themselves internally, you get a different society. You don't need to wait for a perfect government to begin building a better world. You start with the smallest unit of change, the human mind and the human heart. A world of reason begins the moment people decide that clarity matters more than winning. Reason doesn't mean coldness. Reason doesn't mean removing emotion. Reason means using discernment, allowing feelings to be real while refusing to let them drive like an unmanned car. In a reason-based world, truth is no longer a weapon. It's a tool. People can disagree without dehumanizing. People can argue without destroying. Accountability becomes normal, not rare. And compassion becomes practical, not just a comforting idea, but an ethical standard. Because when a society is ruled by fear, it rewards drama. It rewards rage. It rewards cruelty dressed up as strength. But when presence and reason grow in people, you start building culture differently. You start demanding solutions instead of slogans. And life begins to feel more deliberate. Deliberate living means you stop letting life happen to you. It means you start choosing, based on values, not impulses, based on meaning, not noise. You ask, what matters enough to guide my next decision? And then you do the next right thing, even if it's small. Deliberate life is also freedom. Not freedom as, anything goes, but freedom as alignment, freedom from internal contradiction. The chaos machine is addicted to inconsistency. It thrives when people are split inside, wanting peace while feeding rage, wanting love while consuming lies, wanting purpose while chasing distraction. Spiritual presence dissolves that split. It brings coherence, your outer life starting to match your inner truth. And coherence is where fulfillment lives. Fulfillment isn't constant excitement. It's not a permanent high. Fulfillment is the feeling that your life belongs to you. That your days are not random. That your choices mean something. That you're building a future you respect. So what is humanity's purpose in the universe, really? Not a grand destiny spoken by authorities. Not a myth designed to control people. But a lived purpose. If the universe invites anything from us, it's evolution of consciousness. It's the movement from domination to stewardship, from separation to relationship, from reaction to responsibility, from survival to service. Purpose, in human terms, looks like this. To reduce harm. To increase clarity. To deepen love. To build what lasts. And here's the important part. Purpose isn't only something you feel, it's something you practice. You practice purpose by how you speak. You practice it by how you handle conflict. You practice it by what you support with your money, your attention, and your time. You practice it by whether you treat people as disposable, or as sacred, because every human being is a mind trying to live through a life. When purpose becomes practice, reason becomes culture. And culture becomes systems. That's how a different earth starts, through millions of small decisions that eventually become normal expectations. A society that honors presence will design schools differently. It will teach emotional regulation, critical thinking, ethics, and conflict resolution, not just obedience. Communities will invest in mental health, not only punishment. Laws will be built to protect dignity, not to protect power. An economy built on reason will measure success by well-being, not just output. It will protect water, soil, and air because sustainability becomes a moral baseline, not a marketing feature. Technology will be governed by ethics because addiction and harm won't be treated as the cost of doing business. And medicine will move toward prevention and healing, not just reacting after the damage is done. But none of that works if the inner world stays chaotic. So the deeper work is this: people have to become spiritually present enough to stop feeding the old loop. Because you can't build peace with people who are addicted to rage. You can't create a reason-based society out of minds trained only for crisis. So the spiritual path is also a social path. It begins with the individual, but it doesn't end there. It becomes community standards. It becomes everyday ethics. It becomes the choice to repair instead of burn. The choice to understand before condemning. The choice to create instead of destroy. And yes, life still has difficulty. A deliberate world doesn't guarantee no pain. But it prevents the kind of suffering that comes from internal betrayal, living against yourself. Living in constant fear. Living disconnected from values. When you live in alignment, even challenges have meaning. Even struggle becomes instructive. You start seeing life as something you participate in, not something you endure. And that's where freedom turns real. It turns real because you stop being controlled by the chaos inside you. And once that happens, you start refusing to outsource your soul to systems that profit from your confusion. So here's the invitation, the practical version you can carry into the next day. When you feel pulled toward chaos, anger, despair, panic, compulsive scrolling, pause. Ask one question: what am I feeling, and what do I need? Then ask the second question: what would a wise version of me do next, right now? Not the grand version, the next true step. Because purpose is built from repeats, not from one-time awakenings. A deliberate life is a spiritual practice. A reason-guided society is a moral practice. And a fulfilling world is the result of people choosing coherence over conflict, again and again. So if the coming Earth is different, it won't arrive only because the old machine breaks. It will arrive because enough people learn to live differently. Enough people decide that presence is strength. That reason is love with discipline. That fulfillment is alignment. And that humanity's real purpose is to help the world become safer, clearer, and more alive. I love you. Peace.